Please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
All glories to our revered speaker, His Grace Jaya Gurudev Prabhu, our revered uncle, and all glories to the Samur Vaishnava devotees. We thank you all devotees, and particularly Prabhuji, we thank you so much for being here with us today. And you are not new to us. Almost everybody in this Sangha knows you. And so we may put the verse on the screen, and then you take it over from here on. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
So thank you very much for inviting me to your regular Zoom conferences, Hare Krishna Africa. And I will try to read some texts, also today's text, plus other texts which I found relevant to today's lecture. So if you allow me, I will just chant the introduction mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're reading from the third canto, first chapter, verse number 43. I will just read the Sanskrit, then the word by word, and the translation and purport by His Divine Grace, the Prabhupada. Nunam Ripanam Trimadotpatidhanam Mahim Muhushchalayatam Chamubhi Vadhat Prapanna Pitihirshayesho Apya Upai Kashatagam Bhagavan Kurunam. Nunam, of course, Nipanam of the kings. Three, Mada Utpanam, out of false pride. Mahim, earth. Muhu, constantly. Chalayatam, agitating by movements of soldiers. Vadhat, from the act of killing. Prapanna, surrender. I'll just, there's the, if you can just simply put this away so I can read the text. On the right side, there's the attendance. Maybe you could put it somewhere so that I can read the text.
I think it's from your setting.
Okay, so I'll try to answer it.
Yeah, I think check the setting from your end.
Okay, let me see. Nope, it doesn't work. There we go. So, next, Arti Jihirshaya, willing to relieve the distress of sufferers. Ishaha, the Lord. Api, in spite of. Upaikshata, waited. Agham, offenses. Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord. Kurunam, of the Kurus. Translation: despite his being the Lord and being always willing to relieve the distress of sufferers, he, Krishna, refrained from killing the Kurus, although they committed all sorts of sins, and although he saw other kings constantly agitating the earth by their strong military movements carried out under the dictation of three kinds of false pride. Report. As declared in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord appears in the mortal world to execute his much-needed mission of killing the miscreants and giving protection to the suffering faithful. In spite of that mission, Lord Krishna tolerated the insult to Draupadi by the Kurus and the injustices perpetrated against the Pandavas, as well as insults to himself. The question may be raised, Why did he tolerate such injustices and insults in his presence? Why did he not chastise the Kurus immediately? When Draupadi was insulted in the assembly by the Kurus, by their attempt to see her naked in the presence of all, the Lord protected Draupadi by supplying an unlimited length of clothing. But he did not chastise the insulting party immediately. This silence of the Lord did not mean, however, that he excused the offenses of the Kurus. There were many other kings on earth who had become very proud of three kinds of possessions, namely wealth, education, and followers. And they were constantly agitating the earth by movements of military strength. The Lord was just waiting to get them together on the battlefield of Kurukshetra and kill them all at one time, just to make a shortcut in his killing mission. Godless kings, or heads of state, when puffed up by advancement of material wealth, education, and increase of population, always make a show of military strength and give trouble to the innocent. When Lord Krishna was personally present, there were many such kings all over the world, and he thus arranged for the battle of Kurukshetra. In his manifestation of Vishvarupa, the Lord expressed his mission of killing as follows. I have willingly descended to the earth in my capacity of inexorable time in order to decrease the unwanted population. I shall finish all those who have assembled here except you, the Pandavas. This killing does not wait for you to take part in it. It is already arranged. All will be killed by me. If you want to become famous as the hero of the battlefield and thus enjoy the booty of war, then, O Sabyasachi, just become the immediate cause of this killing and thus take the credit. I have already killed all the great warriors, Bhishma, Drona, Jayadratha, Karna, and many other great generals. Do not worry. Fight the battle and be famous as a great hero. The Lord always wants to see his devotee as the hero of some episode which he himself performs. He wanted to see his devotee, a friend Arjuna, as the hero of the battle of Kurukshetra, and thus he waited for all the miscreants of the world to assemble. That and nothing else is the explanation of his waiting. So we can still read the verse. Despite his being the Lord and being always willing to relieve the distress of sufferers, he, Krishna, refrained from killing the Kurus, although they committed all sorts of sins, and although he saw other kings constantly agitating the earth by their strong military movements, carried out under the dictation of three kinds of false pride. Oma Gyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshushu Militam Yenam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this third chapter, this first chapter of the third canto is describing the activities and the pastimes of Vidura. It is the first chapter of the third canto, and it coincides with Vidura's travels after he has been, that's at the very start of this chapter described, more or less chased away from the palace of his brother, Dhritarashtra, by Duryodhana and Karna. He actually felt very much insulted because although he spoke to his brother Dhritarashtra in a very kind way, insisting on the fact that he has not been acting properly out of whatever reason, probably envy of Krishna and the Pandavas. Despite that, Duryodhana and Karna became very agitated, and they said at the start of this chapter described, who is this guy? Why is he come? What is he talking about? This son of a maidservant, because as we know, Vidura was a son of a maidservant. So in this way, Vidura left the palace, felt insulted, and started on a long pilgrimage. It is stated also already in the end of the second canto that on that pilgrimage he met the great sage Maitreya Rishi. But also it is stated later on in this chapter that he met a very great Vaishnava, a very great devotee, a very close relative to Lord Shri Krishna, namely Uddhava. He met him on the bank of the Yamuna. And at that point, he inquired from Uddhava about the well-being of Krishna, a well-being of Krishna's family, his sons, and also the well-being of the Pandavas, Yudhishthira specifically. And today's verse is one of the last verses of this first chapter of third canto. There will be another two verses, that's all. Then the second chapter of the third canto will continue. He is asking Uddhava, actually he's wondering, how is it possible that Krishna has not intervened immediately when the Pandavas were insulted like this? In fact, we know very well that this was a plot by Duryodhana in order to gain the kingdom of the Pandavas. He decided that they will play a deceitful game of dice in which the Shakuni cheated Yudhishthira Maharaj in a way which was absolutely terrible. And as we have read in the Mahabharata specifically, the cheating went on so much that the Pandavas were banned from their kingdom. They were robbed of all their property and they were banished to the forest. So actually, Vidura is inquiring, how is it possible? How is it possible that Krishna didn't do something? He could have immediately gone and said, this is cheating, this Shakuni is a big cheat, everybody knows. His dice were not properly, they were all loaded, as we say. The whole thing was a cheat. Why didn't Lord Krishna intervene immediately? Also, it's stated in this verse that not only the Pandavas were insulted, but he himself was insulted, So Vidura was wondering, how is it possible that, Krishna didn't intervene immediately, as he had, as is stated in the purport, as he had intervened immediately when Draupadi was insulted. So this question is very succinct, and also it is very interesting how Srila Prabhupada develops the answer to this question in his purport. Just to continue, I would just like to read from the Bhagavad Gita, the verses that Srila Prabhupada states. It's stated in the 4th chapter, 8th verse. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanataya sambhavami yuge yuge. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. Then purport. According to Bhagavad Gita, a sadhu, holy man, is a man in Krishna consciousness. A person may appear to be irreligious, but if he has the qualifications of Krishna consciousness wholly and fully, he is to be understood to be a sadhu. And dushkritam applies to those who do not care for Krishna consciousness. Such miscreants, or dushkritam, are described as foolish and the lowest of mankind, even though they may be decorated with mundane education. Whereas a person who is 100% engaged in Krishna consciousness, it is accepted that a sadhu, even though such a person may be neither learned nor well cultured. As far as the atheistics are concerned, it is not necessary for the Supreme Lord to appear as he is to destroy them, as he did with the demons Ravana and Kamsa. The Lord has many agents who are quite competent to vanquish demons. But the Lord especially descends to appease his unalloyed devotees, who are always harassed by the demoniac. The demon harasses the devotee even though the latter may happen to be his kin. Although Prahlad Maharaj was the son of Hiranyakashipu, he was nonetheless persecuted by his father. Although Devaki, the mother of Krishna, was the sister of Kamsa, she and her husband Vasudeva were persecuted only because Krishna was to be born of them. So Lord Krishna appeared primarily to deliver Devaki rather than kill Kamsa. But both were performed simultaneously. Therefore, it is said here that to deliver the devotee and vanquish the demon miscreants, the Lord appears in different incarnations. So this verse very nicely illustrates in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains himself the reason why he appears. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada emphasizes the fact that it's the main duty of Krishna is to please his devotee. There are many other agents, specifically time, the time factor, which Prabhupada also mentions in the and at the end of the purport. And this connection, we may read also the Bhagavad Gita 11th chapter, verse 32 up to 34 with the purport. So, it's the 11th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, verse 32. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Excuse me, what is the chapter again, Prabhuji?
Excuse me. Chapter 11, verse
Okay.
32.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Kalosmi lokakshaya krit pravridho lokan samahartum iha pravritaha ritet pitvam na bhavishyanti sarve ye vastita pratyanyeksheu yodha. Correct translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Time I am, the great destroyer of the worlds, and I have come here to destroy all the people, with the exception of you, the Pandavas. All the soldiers here on both sides will be slain." Purport. Although Arjuna knew that Krishna was his friend and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was puzzled by the various forms exhibited by Krishna. Therefore, he asked further about the actual mission of this devastating force. It is written in the Vedas that the Supreme Truth destroys everything, even the Brahmanas, as stated in the Katha Upanishad, first canto, second chapter, 25th verse. Yasya Brahman Chakshatram Cha Ubhe Bhavata Odanaha Mrityur Yasyopashettanam Ka Itha Veda Yatra Saha. Eventually, all the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and everyone else are devoured like a meal by the Supreme. This form of the Supreme Lord is the all-devouring giant. And here Krishna presents himself in that form of all-devouring time. Except for a few Pandavas, everyone who was present on the battlefield would be devoured by him. Arjuna was not in favor of the fight, and he thought it was better not to fight. Then there would be no frustration. In reply, the Lord is saying that even if he did not fight, every one of them would be destroyed, for that was his plan. If Arjuna stopped fighting, they would die in another way. Death could not be checked even if he did not fight. In fact, they were already dead. Time is destruction, and all manifestations are to be vanquished by the desire of the Supreme Lord. That is the law of nature. Tasmat vam utishta yashola bhasva jitva shakshva rajam samriddham mayaivaite nihata purvameva nibittamatram bhavasavyasachin. Therefore get up, prepare to fight and win glory. Conquer your enemies and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement, and you, O Savyasachi, can be but an instrument in the fight. Purport. Savyasachin refers to one, who can shoot arrows very expertly in the field. Thus, Arjuna is addressed as an expert warrior, capable of delivering arrows to kill his enemies. Just become an instrument, nimittamatram. This word is also very significant. The whole world is moving according to the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Foolish persons who do not have sufficient knowledge think that nature is moving without a plan, and all manifestations are but accidental formations. I would just stop at this little sentence because it's interesting that Prabhupada mentions the scientists. Yeah? Foolish persons who do not have sufficient knowledge think that nature is moving without a plan, and all manifestations are but accidental formations. Now, for example, the scientists, they admire nature's arrangements in the different animal species. For example, the snakes, they have a skin which is very special. So when they crawl, although they are actually animals, reptiles, who are obliged to crawl on the soil, on the earth, and their body is quite delicate, they have a skin which is specifically made in such a way that although they have to crawl on the earth, despite the fact that the earth is maybe stones, pebbles, or even other sharp items, their skin is arranged in such a fantastic way that there is what we call static electricity in their skin. And due to this static electricity in their skin, they're more or less levitating above the ground. A few millimeters, not even millimeters, fractions of millimeters, allow them to crawl on the soil, on the ground, despite the fact that their body is quite delicate. So the scientists say, oh, such a wonderful arrangement by nature. But it's not nature, it's Krishna. And Krishna has so many other fantastic arrangements he arranges in nature. For example, let's speak about the tree. Prabhupada called the tree Padapat. Padapat means a living entity who eats through the leg, right? And all the moisture which is in the soil and the minerals and other elements which are necessary for the life of a tree are pumped, literally pumped up through the trunk all the way to the branches and to each single little leaf in the tree. So there's no mechanical device in the tree which will pump, when we pump water from the soil. For example, when we make a well, we need either a manual pump or we need a mechanical or electric pump to pump the water out of the soil. But the tree doesn't have any of these mechanical devices, and still it pumps all this water and minerals into its trunk and through the trunk all the way to the last little leaf on the tree. So these are all fantastic things. So maybe we can go back to the purport. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Foolish persons who do not have sufficient knowledge think that nature is moving without a plan, and all manifestations are but accidental formations. And Prabhupada further elaborates. There are many so-called scientists who suggest that perhaps it was like this, or maybe like that. But there is no question of perhaps and maybe. There is a specific plan being carried out in this material world. What is this plan? The cosmic manifestation is a chance for the conditioned souls to go back to God and back to home. As long as they have the domineering mentality, which makes them try to lord it over material nature, they are conditioned. But anyone who can understand the plan of the Supreme Lord and cultivate Krishna consciousness is most intelligent. The creation and destruction of the cosmic manifestation are under the superior guidance of God. Thus, the battle of Kurukshetra was fought according to the plan of God. Arjuna was refusing to fight, but he was told that he should fight in accordance with the desire of the Supreme Lord. Then he would be happy. If one is in full Krishna consciousness and his life is devoted to the Lord's transcendental service, he is perfect. And the next verse, that's the last one which Prabhupada quotes in the purport. Dronam cha bhishmam cha yadratam cha kadlam tatanyayam api yoda viram maya hatam stvam jahima vyatishta yudyasva chetasi rane sapatnam. Translation: Drona, Bhishma, Jayadratha, Karna, and the other great warriors have already been destroyed by me. Therefore, kill them and do not be disturbed. Simply fight, and you will vanquish your enemies in battle. Purport: every plan is made by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he is so kind and merciful to his devotees that he wants to give the credit to his devotees who carry out his plan according to his desire. Life should therefore move in such a way that everyone acts in Krishna consciousness and understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the medium of a spiritual master. The plans of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are understood by his mercy, and the plans of the devotees are as good as his plans. One should follow such plans and be victorious in the struggle for existence. Thank you very much. So what I have still here, I wanted to, yeah. Yeah, maybe I'll read this also. Well, this is not necessary maybe to be read actually. So, okay. So I just wanted to, if you can share this screen here on your, as the administrator. Prabhupada states in his purport that there are quite a lot of people who are like demons. He calls them godless kings or heads of state when puffed up by advancement of material wealth, education, and increase of population, always make a show of military strength and give trouble to the innocent. So I have here a list of African dictators. If you can maybe, yeah, this is in the purport, Prabhupada states. But what I have on the screen, maybe, can you see it or not? I guess you can do. Yeah. Anyhow, never mind. Yeah, godless kings or heads of state, when puffed up by advancement of material wealth, education, and increase of population, always make a show of military strength and give trouble to the innocent. Yeah, this is a very, I would say, common thing in this Kali Yuga. So here we have a list of African dictators and leaders in history. And some of them are really notorious. I will just read because you are from Hare Krishna Africa. They're stating, so we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, the first one is Charles Taylor. Charles MacArthur Janaki Taylor life story is akin of that of a movie. He became the 22nd president of Liberia on August 1997 and served until August 2003. He has actually created such a situation. The charges were terrorism, murders, rape, sexual slavery, enslavement, and enlisting child soldiers. Then another one dictator, Mobutu Sese Seko. In May 1997, he was ousted by rebel forces, and 3 months later, he died from prostate cancer in Morocco. Yeah. Then Robert Mugabe, another. In 2005, he alleged that he won the re-election with the help of the corruption and violence. And again, he won in 2013. And Mugabe's rule, anyone who opposes him has been subject to intimidation, arrest, and persecution. Then there's General Sani Abacha. He was also, here is stated, however, his government has been accused of violating human rights, and Abacha and his family were accused of lining their pockets with money from the country's treasury. Abacha was ranked as the 4th most corrupt world leader in history in 2004. Then you have Maglas Nguema. Crazy dictators are so strange, no strange to history, and the African continent seemed to be has had its own share. Nguema ordered the death of those who wore spectacles, so much so that at the end of his life, almost all of the educated class had either been executed or forced into exile. He even had members of his own family killed. What had he been smoking? So another one is Sekou Touré. An estimated 50,000 people are believed to have been killed under Sekou Touré's rule. Touré was friends with all offered asylum of Kwame Nkrumah, former Ghanaian president. Then there was Siad Barre. He is also stated, Barre's reign has been described as an oppressive dictatorship. He persecuted, jailed, and tortured those who opposed his rule and disregarded the rights of the population. He had wells poisoned, herd of animals and people machine gunned. Then Omar al-Bashir, another one. In March 2009, a warrant for his arrest was issued on charges of murder, extermination, rape, torture, and intentionally attacking civilians, but has not been arrested since. Unlike most dictators, al-Bashir has been credited for stimulating economic growth in Sudan. The country, however, was undergoing high rates of inflation, etc., etc. And Hissene Habre, another one. In May 2016, he was sentenced to life in prison on charge of rape, sexual slavery, and ordering the killing of 40,000 people. And finally, the most famous, General Idi Amin Dada. His victims included former Prime Minister Janai Lawum, journalists, lawyers, members of his own cabinet, and many other prominent members of the society. It is said that the bodies of those he killed were dumped in the river Nile. So these are just sub-statements which are illustrating how these people who are demoniac, as stated in the purport here, yeah, I think it's stated, you highlighted it, that, yeah, there are many other kings on earth who had become very proud of 3 kinds of possession: wealth, education, and followers. And they were constantly agitating the earth by movements of military strength. Yeah. So in this Kali Yuga, it's absolutely normal that we have so many people who are being oppressed throughout the world. We can see today how in the world people are being oppressed by military, killed, forced into exile. And we see nowadays also in countries like Palestine, Gaza, where people live in the most precarious situation, actually surviving just like incredibly in terrible conditions. The same goes for wars which have been fought in the 20th century. We can't imagine the horrors of the Second World War in Europe, where so many millions of people died, so many soldiers died, so many civilians died. Yeah. So one can ask, how is it that Krishna doesn't intervene? Many times the people ask, how is it that Krishna doesn't intervene? Why? How does God, many people ask like this, how has God allowed these things? How is it possible that he allowed the killing of so many people during the Second World War. And it's stated that many people lost faith in God due to this fact that God, so-called, didn't intervene. Yeah? So similarly, in this situation, which is described in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vidura is asking a very similar question. How is it possible, despite his being the Lord and being always willing to relieve the distress of sufferers, Krishna refrained from killing the Kurus? Yeah, why didn't he kill Mugabe, and why doesn't he kill Putin, or why doesn't he kill the other guys, you know? One can say, although they committed all sorts of sins, and although they saw other kings constantly agitating the earth by their strong military movements carried out under the dictation of three kinds of false pride. And Prabhupada describes here nicely the three kinds of pride: wealth, education, and followers. You know? Mainly wealth in Kali Yuga, people are so enamored, mainly the leaders of the countries are so enamored with wealth, you can't imagine. I've seen a documentary on how this president of Russia, Mr. Putin, has a palace, which is absolutely an amazing place. He has, in that palace, he has a private cinema, he has a bar, a discotheque. You can imagine, and many of these leaders, so-called kings, so-called leaders of the nations, they have 20 cars, Rolls Royces, Mercedes, etc., etc. So they become proud, as Prabhupada writes here, of the three kinds of possession: education and followers. Of course, they also rely on their followers by intimidating them, or by distributing to them all kinds of bonuses. You can see that in Africa, as we've read, so many corrupt and evil and cruel people there. Sometimes people ask, why is this migration from Africa going to Europe? Why are so many people running away from their African country and risking their lives crossing the Mediterranean? You know, many times they die in the process. Children die, adults die. It's a horrible situation. We are ashamed here in Europe. We are ashamed of this situation. It's absolutely obnoxious. But we never ask, why do these people run away from Africa? Why are they taking so much risk and dying in the process, you know? Well, one of the reasons, of course, is the climate. It is a fact that the climate in Africa is very rough, and the climate change is not helping the things. The heat waves in Africa are absolutely devastating. But not only in Africa, of course, many refugees come from Afghanistan, many refugees come from Pakistan. So why are these refugees running? Because their leaders, because their so-called presidents, etc., they are harassing them. Prabhupada is writing here. And they were constantly agitating the earth by movements of military strength. Yeah. So people run away from this situation. Prabhupada even writes in the 12th canto, I mean, Prabhupada not directly, but it's written in the 12th canto that in Kali Yuga, people will be so agitated by taxes, by cruel rulers, corrupt rulers, cruel people who are pretending to be kings, pretending to be presidents, and in fact, they're just vultures who kill and eat the dead bodies of children. I mean, it's absolutely obnoxious, you know. So one may ask, how is it, exactly like Vidura asks, how is it possible that these things are going on and Krishna doesn't intervene? That Krishna doesn't intervene in the Second World War when so many millions of people have died? Why doesn't Krishna intervene? At the end of the purport, Prabhupada writes, the Lord always wants to see his devotee as the hero of some episode which he himself performs. He wanted to see his devotee and friend Arjuna as the hero of the battle of Kurukshetra. Yeah. He wanted to see his devotee and friend Arjuna as the hero of the battle of Kurukshetra. And thus he waited for all the miscreants of the world to assemble. That and nothing else is the explanation of his waiting. So In this connection, I would maybe follow up on what one of my previous speakers, His Grace Hari Sauri Prabhu, said in your channel. I followed that very, very interesting and extremely inspiring talk that he gave on your channel. It was absolutely amazing how when His Grace Hari Sauri spoke about his joining ISKCON and about being Srila Prabhupada's personal secretary and all these things, and how he glorified Srila Prabhupada. So in this connection, and following up on what he said, I would assume that Srila Prabhupada was in the same way as Arjun was deputed to come to act as the instrument of the Lord. Similarly, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, appearing in the Kali Yuga, Channa Avatar, the hidden avatar, he has specifically deputed Srila Prabhupada to come and establish the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which is now present throughout the world. And of course, it's not for the moment being, for the time being, it's a very young movement. Srila Prabhupada came, as Shyama Sundar also describes in his book, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami. He writes there in this very wonderful trilogy how Srila Prabhupada came in what we call a time window, a window in the history of the Kali Yuga, a small window. In 1965, he had come to America and started his movement, and many, many devotees joined him. And I would assume, I'm almost sure, that many of these devotees were actually followers of Lord Chaitanya in their past life already. So anyhow, Srila Prabhupada came to the West in a time which was most auspicious for spreading Krishna consciousness. Had Srila Prabhupada come earlier, or had Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for example, sent already his emissaries, missionaries in the 16th century or 17th century, there would be a risk that they would be burnt as heretics. They would be killed, missionaries of Lord Chaitanya, because there was the time when there was the Inquisition and the church, the Christian, be it Catholic or Protestant, were fighting amongst each other and killing each other like anything. Had Srila Prabhupada or any Vaishnava come at that period, there would be absolutely no chance that anyone would hear them, because they would kill them on the spot, burn them on the stake like all the heretics. But Lord Chaitanya waited, similarly as Lord Krishna waited for the Kurukshetra battle to take place. Similarly, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu waited for the time of 1965, when the time was ripe exactly for Srila Prabhupada's voyage to America and starting preaching Krishna consciousness. Therefore, we pray to Srila Prabhupada, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauda Vani Pracharini. He's come to preach the teachings, the message, Vani, of Lord Chaitanya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was an emissary empowered by his Guru Maharaj, by the Guru Maharajas in all the disciplic succession, all the way to Rupa Goswami, all the way to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We should never underestimate the importance of this, of our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. He wasn't an ordinary, as Hari Sauri has described it very nicely in his presentation. Srila Prabhupada wasn't an ordinary Vaishnava. He came as an emissary of Lord Chaitanya in the right time, at the right place. And we can see that within 50 years, a little more than 50 years now, it will be actually, next year will be exactly 60 years that Srila Prabhupada came. So 60 years basically. how many things have changed in the world within 60 years? It's incredible, you know. I mean, let's take, for example, people turning away from meat eating, yeah, and from smoking. Here, I don't know in Africa, but here in Europe or in the United States of America, smoking is prohibited practically everywhere. Whereas when Prabhupada came, people were smoking everywhere. They were smoking. I remember people were smoking at the university lectures. Professor came, lit up a cigarette, and the students lit up their cigarette also. You know, there was the time when Prabhupada came. Now, 60 years later, it's absolutely banned. There's no smoking anywhere in the schools, in the offices, what to speak of trains, what to speak of airplanes. Srila Prabhupada, when he traveled, there were people smoking cigarettes and cigars in the airplanes. Now it's absolutely forbidden. Yeah, and what to speak also of the diet of people. Now, I would just give you an example. I used to work at the university, and I organized conferences for students, and I organize everything around it, including the menu of the students. And I found out that from the 300 students who were attending the conference, 170 were vegetarian. So I went to my boss and I told him, look, Maharaj, I mean, he wasn't a Maharaj, but I told him, look, Mr. Vice Rector, there's 170 devotees who are students who are vegetarian. What should I do? And he told me, oh, you know, your Hare Krishna people, they have some Govinda restaurants, isn't it? Can't you arrange that they cater for these vegetarian students? Yeah. So vegetarianism has become within 60 years so much popular that throughout the world, the younger generation, particularly the younger generation, is giving up meat eating, yeah, completely. And even vegan, which means that they don't want to participate in the killing of cows in slaughterhouses, because that's the way they get milk nowadays. So just see, within 60 years, Prabhupada came just at the right time to start a movement, worldwide movement, incredible, within 60 years, which is changing the mentality, the demonic mentality of people. Yeah. And it's progressing more and more. Now, still we have people who are completely demoniac. We cannot avoid that. But it's a fact that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement is a movement which is not killing demons like Lord Krishna had killed Ravana and Kamsa, and also time, of course. Prabhupada states that in the Bhagavad Gita, that time is destroying everyone, that Krishna is time and kills everyone, that he really doesn't have to kill everybody because time will take care of all these demons, be they African dictators or Russian dictators or whoever, Hitler or Mussolini or anyone, you know. Krishna has his time factor, which destroys every single person in this world, even the biggest demons who think that they will live forever, right? But nevertheless, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so kind. It is stated that when Jagai and Madhai attacked Lord Nityananda, then Lord Chaitanya appeared with his Sudarshan Chakra and was ready to kill these two demons. And Lord Nityananda fell to the feet of Lord Chaitanya and begged him, do not kill these two people, because if you kill these two people, then it's the end. Then it's the end of the age, because everyone is like Jagai and Madhai in this Kali Yuga. There is no difference. So Lord Chaitanya mercifully accepted Jagai and Madhai, and we know from the Chaitanya Charitamrita and from other Vaishnava scriptures how Jagai and Madhai changed completely. They had a change of heart, right? So Lord Chaitanya's movement doesn't kill demons physically, but kills the demonic mentality. That's a fact. I personally am a witness of this in my own life. Right? And not only myself, but many other devotees have this experience, have been in, somehow or other, we have been demoniac or not very pious, to say the least. I think Harisori Prabhu has very nicely described his way to Krishna consciousness, how he was desperate and how he was actually suffering by not being a devotee of Krishna and having this lifestyle which is not very convenient. Every one of us, I mean, there's so many examples of devotees. One of the best examples, just to conclude my talk, then there will be some questions, I assume. There was Indradumna Maharaj told this story, and I read it recently also. They were in France in 1975. They had a very beautiful temple next to the center of Paris. And Indradumna Maharaj walked down the street had a japa walk, and suddenly a man, more or less like looking like an animal, came out of the bushes, dirty, smelly, with matted hair, and he asked if he can eat something. Do you have food? And Indradumna Maharaj was appalled when he saw this personality. So he said, yeah, come to the temple, we will give you some food. So this man, or this young man with matted hair, dirty, filthy, one of these homeless people and drug addicts particularly, he came and he stood in front of the temple, and they didn't allow him to go into the temple. So they gave him prasadam. And then a few days later, Srila Prabhupada arrived to Paris, and he went on a morning walk, and suddenly this man just came out of the bushes again, ran to Prabhupada, and the devotees immediately jumped at him and pulled him away, right, so that he doesn't approach Srila Prabhupada. So this man just hid away somewhere. So anyhow, they came back from the morning walk, and the door of the temple had been closed by Indradumna personally, and when they came, the door was open. So they came in, and who do they see? They see this man, they called him Pigpen. They called him Pigpen because he was so filthy. So lo and behold, in the middle of the temple room, they see this horrible personality sitting there. And when Srila Prabhupada came in, this man, who they called Pigpen, he jumped at Prabhupada's feet and held Prabhupada's feet with his two hands, and the devotees, they didn't know what to do. And Prabhupada was petting his head, and he said, "It's all right, my boy. It's all right. Everything is okay, my boy." And the devotees were completely shocked to see the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And this man, he later on became a devotee. Not only he became a devotee, he became a book distributor. And if I remember well, this year, at the start of the year, there was a story about him. He was a book distributor in America. He passed away, and he always said, "Krishna saved, Prabhupada saved me, Prabhupada saved me." So these are all stories of our Jagai and Madhais. I think that we have many, 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 many stories like this. How Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doesn't kill demons, but he kills the demonic mentality. And it will take some time, just like it took some time before the Battle of Kurukshetra took place, where Krishna eliminated all these so-called leaders, kings, who assembled. Krishna was just waiting. Prabhupada describes it in the purport. He wanted, excuse me, can I see that again at the end of the purport? He waited for all the miscreants of the world. It's written there, right? Yeah, anyhow. He was waiting for the miscreants of the world to come together at the Kurukshetra battle, and he eliminated them physically, right? The Lord always wants to see his devotee as the hero, just like Prabhupada. Lord Chaitanya wanted to see Srila Prabhupada as the hero of some episode, which means the spreading of the Sankirtan movement, which he himself performs. He wanted to see his devotee, Srila Prabhupada, as the hero of the Sankirtan movement, and thus he waited for all the miscreants of the world in 1965 to assemble. That nothing else is the explanation of his waiting. So it will take some time. We are the first, second, perhaps in parts of the world, third generation of devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And we will have children, and their children will have their children, etc., etc. And through the book distribution that we are performing, through the Harinam Sankirtan we're performing, slowly but surely, we are assembling all the pious people of the world who will change the situation. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also so kind that for the next 10,000 years, this Yuga Dharma, chanting the holy name and worshipping Lord Krishna and reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, this will go on for the next 10,000 years. We're just at the start, it's first 60 years, but it will go on, and it is Lord Chaitanya's, Lord Krishna's plan. Then, of course, after 10,000 years, Kali Yuga will resume, and the age will be very bad. So we have now this also the time, short time, 10,000 years, where things will become, it's like the golden age, it will go on. So we have to be confident that this movement is not the ordinary movement, it's not an ordinary religious Hindu movement, but rather it is the plan of the Lord, how to save the planet, how to save people on this, in this world, and make this world for 10,000 years a golden age. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope that I have not wasted your time. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Jai Gurudev Prabhu. Yes, very beautiful. Dear devotees, if anyone may have questions, realizations, comments, you may want to ask or share, you indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to speak. One thing I was just wanted to address, Prabhuji, is that I believe the audience and whoever may be watching this live or watch this Krishna Katha later on may opine, as I am about to do, that lots of the African leaders that were listed as autocratic actually were not autocratic at all. They were rather kleptocratics. They found ways and means to steal the nationals' money, but they were not autocratic at all. People still had their freedom to decide to do what they want to do, but they are so expert at stealing from the poor masses. And that is what is causing lots of Africans to travel to other places like US and Europe for greener pasture. If African leadership were to be pretty good, the situation will turn it the other way around. Americans and Europeans will be wanting to go to Africa.
Die.
Yeah. But the unfortunate thing is we have lots of leaders who are very much happy stealing from people and making lots of riches while the rest of the people remain in abject poverty. So that is just what I wanted to mention. But the concept is absolutely true that lots of the leaders, whether Africa, wherever, the whole agenda is to increase their pleasures at the expense of the citizens. Like we see what is going on around the world now. I mean, we try to stay away from politics, but sometimes there are certain things that need to be mentioned or addressed. Like we have one of our revered gurus who is senselessly arrested in Russia because Russia says that no foreigner should preach in their country. Maharaj just visited. Maharaj did not even preach, and they still arrested him and his assistants. So these are some of leadership we can say that they are autocratic. Dear devotees, if anyone may have, so I just wanted to address that because I believe that lots of people watching this, either now or later, may say, no, these people are not autocratic at all. So I just wanted to address that before somebody says that. Hare Krishna. But if I may ask a question, it is from the purport that Srila Prabhupada gave. And that is the last sentence Srila Prabhupada gave in the purport, which you addressed a couple times in your deliberation. The Lord always wants to see his devotee as the hero of some episode which he himself performs. He wanted to see his devotee and friend Arjuna as the hero of the battle of Kurukshetra, and thus he waited for all the miscreants of the world to assemble. That, and nothing else, is the explanation of his waiting. So my question from this angle is that the Lord wants to see his devotee as a hero. In some of the episodes of Krishna's own pastimes, then the question becomes, how then does other people consider a devotee of the Lord a devotee when such a devotee is performing a special purpose role in the pastimes of the Lord, yet does not become hero in the eyes of the public? For devotees, viewpoint will definitely be different from the viewpoint of the world. And the viewpoint of the world is that if someone is a devotee of the Lord, such a person must be protected by all sorts of onslaughts. But oftentimes, the opposite is rather the case, that those who dedicate their lives to God, they suffer the most. So how do we explain this seemingly dichotomy situation to those whom we're trying to preach to, that try to become servant of God? If you become a servant of God and you serve him sincerely, God can make you a hero in his pastimes. And they are not seeing such heroes.
Well, honestly speaking, we can see in this Kali Yuga, there are so many cases of devotees being killed, like Lord Jesus Christ was killed, and many other devotees have been killed. I think that one of our god sisters and some other devotees were killed also by one of the African dictators. I think Taylor, what was his name?
Yeah.
In Liberia. And so many cases we have. Maybe you have read this book, Salted Bread, which was written by one of our devotees in former Soviet Union, who had been arrested, etc., etc. And many of our devotees in Russia actually have been sentenced and died in psychiatric clinics. And yeah, just all these are examples of, but nonetheless, I don't think that that takes away the fact that they were heroes. They were heroes, and we accept them as devotees, accept them as heroes, and the Lord takes them back to home, back to Godhead, because they have sacrificed their life I will just read one little purport from Srila Prabhupada. I just read in the 4th canto, if I may. Yeah. Yeah, it's in the 6th canto, sorry. Chapter 6th canto, chapter, yeah, I got it here. Chapter 10. 6th canto, chapter 10. It is read like this. If Krishna. Yeah. Just a second. If one is advanced in knowledge.
Chapter 10, text what?
Canto 6, chapter 10, verse number 6. At the end of the purport, Prabhupada writes the following. At the present moment, the entire world is in a dangerous position under the spell of a godless civilization. You have it there? Yeah, exactly. At the present moment, the entire world is in a dangerous position under the spell of a godless civilization. The Krishna consciousness movement needs many exalted, learned persons who will sacrifice their lives to revive God consciousness throughout the world. We therefore invite all men and women advanced in knowledge to join the Krishna consciousness movement and sacrifice their lives for the great cause of reviving the God consciousness of human society. I just read that and I was impressed by this appeal that Prabhupada makes in this purport of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So yeah, sacrificing one's life, it's a fact, you know. Many devotees, I think you have had also in your Hare Krishna Africa, you have invited my dear godbrother Manidhar Prabhu and many others, Hari Sori also, and Malati, I've seen also she has been on the channel. These are devotees who have really sacrificed their lives, their youths. They've given their youths to Srila Prabhupada and sacrificed their lives to spread God consciousness. So they are heroes, of course. And as I said, in the other traditions, other religions also, there are many of these people who sacrifice their life for God consciousness, for spreading God consciousness. So it is necessary. We are a movement which spreads God consciousness, and it's not an easygoing armchair philosophical movement. We are not Hindus, etc. We are spreading God consciousness, and Srila Prabhupada sacrifices life also for the cause. So we should be aware of the fact that being a hero is not any cheap thing. And of course, we are not concerned with the fact that the materialistic people, they don't accept or they don't see that these are real heroes, because mundane people, they usually, their heroes are the pop stars and rock and roll stars and politicians and I don't know what, you know. They have so many heroes, film stars, etc. You know, so these are their heroes, but we have our heroes, and I think that that's a fact. And so if someone joins the Hare Krishna movement for this purpose of spreading God consciousness, he's a hero for us, even if he's just a bhakta. You know, we have many bhaktas who go out and distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. They're heroes, no doubt.
Well, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you. We can't thank you enough because, excuse me, particularly I'm very much touched by the verse you just gave us, 6:10:6, Srimad Bhagavatam 6:10:6, and in the purport, Worship Prabhupada was appealing to the world. And Krishna himself has also said, same or similar thing in 3:21. I think 3:21. Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, text 21. Yad yad acharate shrishtas tat tat avetarojanaha sa yat pramanam kurute lokas tat anuvartate. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So, Srila Prabhupada is telling us that if someone has wealth, has high education, they should use this wealth and wealth of education in helping to spread Krishna consciousness. But sometimes it's, excuse me to say, a bit saddening to hear some devotees say that you don't have to go to school, you don't have to have education. We know it's not a requirement, but with that, just like Prabhupada is saying, it can also help bring about some people who otherwise would not become devotees. So I'm very much grateful that you gave this wonderful quotation, and I believe devotees may learn from this that going to school and having higher education, having wealth in themselves do not rob one his devotional service. It is how we use them. Unless, Prabhuji, if you want to say something in that regard, we have somebody signed up, then we'll go to this devotee.
Well, we have definitely many devotees who have educated devotees who are preaching Krishna consciousness within the academia, for example. I would just like to mention the spiritual master who has so much done good to the African continent. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj has literally sacrificed his life for preaching in Africa. And we have seen so many times how he influenced very important persons in Africa, even going that far that he dressed in the attire of a Zulu warrior, if I remember well, just to spread God consciousness. And the way that Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj spread God consciousness in Africa is exemplary. He's a real hero. What he did in Africa, how he preached Krishna consciousness in Africa was absolutely amazing. So powerful, so powerful. So not only that, but also many of our devotees who are university educated, who are wealthy, like or Ambarish Maharaj and many other devotees who are very educated, disciples of Srila Prabhupada, disciples of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. It is very important that we preach to the higher classes, because in the future this may help the world very much. So it's not that devotees shouldn't study. If they feel like they should become educated, university educated, I think that we should encourage them, definitely.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. So we go to His Grace. Madhavan Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. All grace unto your little feet. Thank you very much for sharing this wonderful time for us, especially for us in Africa. We so much appreciate your gesture. When you made mention about sacrifice, it reminds me Jesus also made a quotation or a statement as regards that. When he said, "Blessed are you when men shall persecute you and utter all manners of evil against you, falsely on my account." He said, you should rejoice because your reward is in heaven. And that's how so much they persecute the prophets who are before you. So sacrifice is part of it to spread Krishna consciousness. And I also appreciate the fact when you encourage us, when you now say that we should be confident that this movement, that this Krishna consciousness movement, will not fail, and it's going to expand for the next 10,000 years, which will appear as the golden age in the Kali Yuga. I think this is an encouragement for us because there are a lot of devotees thinking that the movement is going to fail, considering the fact of the when we start making comparisons. When you look at the temple, the number of people in the temple, they compare with people in the churches, So I think this quite encouraging. Then also the issue of vegetarianism. In Nigeria presently, the problem, we're having the problem with men, those who are rearing cows. You know, usually they will enter people's farm, eat all the crops, and it becomes clashes between the men and the farmers. So the advice I used to give them is that if you stop eating these cows, then they will not bring it to your environment. But of course, nobody will listen to my sermon because they are addicted to killing these cows. So not following the principles or killing animals, you know, it's their own cause. Because if you don't, if you are not patronizing them, they are not going to bring them to your land. And then you want to eat the cow, but they have to eat plants also. So like this, there's contradiction. So that's what's happening in Africa. People migrate from Africa not because the weather is not good. And the weather is even, I think it's even better. It's not as good, but because of like Prabhu Mahadev has said, people are so selfish. The money, one person will pocket the whole of the country's money, and people are suffering. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for sharing that. Govinda Prabhu, did you have your hand raised? I'm not sure.
No, no.
Oh,
Prabhu, my
okay.
respectful obeisances to you, Prabhu, and my obeisances to all the devotees.
Okay.
And thank you very, very much for your presentation. Very beautiful. Hare Krishna.
I just would like to mention one thing.
Yes, please go ahead.
The question of meat. Yeah, you're absolutely right that it's in specific regions of the world, some places in Nigeria, I assume, but also there are places like Argentina and Brazil where meat eating is extremely largely people, most of the people are meat eaters. But as you have stated, this verse from the from the Bhagavad Gita, Yat Yat Acharati Shrestas Tat Tat Evetaro Janaha Sayat Pramanam Kurute Lokas Tat Anuvartate, that the example must be, Prabhupada said the example is more important than precept. And slowly but surely, people becoming, they have friends, those friends have some other friends, and somehow or other, the Shrestha means the people who are, I would say, in position, they slowly but surely understand that this meat eating and producing food for slaughtering cows, like for example in South America, parts of the rainforests in Brazil, in Bolivia, in Peru, in Argentina, of course, also, but mainly in these regions of the Amazon, they're producing. They're simply, deforesting the forest just simply so that they can plant soya to feed the cows. And the Shreshtas, I mean the educated people, the people who have influence in the world, throughout the world, be it in Europe, in America, or Africa, they understand that this is absurd. This is completely absurd. So it's still going on, just like, when we read this verse about why doesn't Krishna intervene? Why did Badura ask, why doesn't Krishna immediately intervene when they insulted the Pandavas and himself also? So it may take some time. We should be patient, but slowly but surely there will be Shreshtas, there will be I mean, I worked for many years at an agriculture university here in Prague, in Czech Republic, and some 30 years ago, this was common that meat eating was okay. We should produce as much as possible food for for cattle, then we can slaughter them, and so like that for McDonald's and blah blah blah. But nowadays, I spoke with many professors who are absolutely, I would say, convinced that this is not the way. This is really not the way. And the United Nations and other international organizations, the food and the food organization, FAO, they're appealing more and more to governments to reduce meat and to increase vegetable or non-meat products on the market. So it may take some time, but slowly but surely the question of meat eating is becoming more and more relevant to people as a nonsense. You know, it's something which is for the future. It has no future. You know? So yeah, I'm relatively optimistic, and plus that there is another challenge which we are all confronted with worldwide, and that is climate change, which we have produced by our demoniac civilization, as Prabhupada calls it, you know, godless civilization. Yeah, this is all a product of our godless civilization. And that will cause people to think more about live locally and think globally. That's the word. Live locally, produce food locally, and think globally. That's the whole thing.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Anyone else with something to ask or to share? Sri Jaya Gurudev Prabhu, talking about Srila Prabhupada's effect and influence over the world, as we are all seeing, is amazing, actually. And I think that in itself should give us struggling devotees the encouragement to believe that Lord Chaitanya's movement is going to reign for 10,000 years. Because there are lots of words that are accepted in English language today that are all borrowed from Sanskrit. And they were not used, if any, or at all, until Srila Prabhupada came into the picture. Everybody is familiar with mantra. Everybody is familiar with guru. Everybody is familiar with avatar. You know, and these are all Sanskrit words, you know, and nobody even thinks of it as borrowed. Everybody thinks it's our language. And it's all due to Srila Prabhupada's effect. So if we try our little best to follow what has been given to us, I believe we can make some impact. So that is the mercy we are all requesting for and praying for, and it is not by accident that we have you as our revered uncle, who has been trained by Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada himself, and with your dedication, we beseech you that you pray for us. You know how difficult it is practicing devotional service. But you pray for us that under all circumstances, we stay under the shelter of Srila Prabhupada in his house that he built called ISKCON. Because sometimes somebody may say, I'm taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada, but may not take shelter of Srila Prabhupada in his house, which to me is also dangerous. So this is our prayer. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, if you may have concluding words, since nobody seems to have something to share, concluding words, and then we'll
my concluding words are the following. Chant 16 rounds and follow the 4 regulative principles, and read Srila Prabhupada's books as far as possible each day, or listen to his lectures, and be very faithful to your spiritual master, who is a faithful servant of Srila Prabhupada and of the ISKCON mission. And in this way, you become successful and become a hero in wherever country, wherever city, wherever village you live. You become a hero by chanting 16 rounds. Not easy. And following the 4 regulative principles and reading Srila Prabhupada's books and listening to his lectures. And be faithful, faithful to your spiritual master.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Today is Ekadashi.
Yes.
So whatever little service we render carries much more weight. So we pray and hope that the Lord listens to our prayer. And with that being said, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute, and we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, our revered uncle, His blessed Jai Gurudev Prabhu, for being with us today. Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhu bhakti vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai.
Jai,
Jai.
Guru Prabhu ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Jai,
Jai.
Panacharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinde ki jai.
Jai.
Gaura Bhakta Vrinde ki jai. Nitai Gopi Mnande.
Hare Hare.